You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and James Jones. And West Ham United are unbeaten in the Premier League in the 2023-24 campaign after a resounding victory at home over London rivals Chelsea 3-1 at London Stadium. The Super Sunday game. The world was watching Chelsea's near £1 billion squad decimated by the brute power, technique and skill by converted right back Michail Antonio. Absolutely hilarious watching him rifle it into the bottom left corner. I couldn't be the only one in the world with their head in their hands, refusing to get excited as Michail ambled through on goal before rifling one of the most accurate shots I've ever seen him hit into that bottom corner. He, of course, waited, Jonesy, did he not, until he got in the penalty area before shooting? Because as we know, he's literally allergic to scoring from outside the box.
Yeah, I did think of you, mate, when he smashed that in the bottom corner. You were the first person I thought of. Which I'm sure when Areola saved the penalty earlier on in the game, I was probably the first person you thought of, right? Yeah, what a performance! I say what a performance. There were parts of the game which were really rubbish from West Ham, really rubbish. But we dug in, defended very well, particularly towards the end of the game when Chelsea were chasing it. And we scored when it mattered most, and James Ward-Prowse made a huge difference to the way we take corners and the midfield. But all round, it was a great day. It was very surprising. I was expecting to rock up there after a 2-hour journey into Stratford to have a 2-hour journey back, having been thumped 4-0 or something ridiculous like that. So it was very welcome, very surprising, but yeah, very happy with that. And it gives us a little bit of something to think now. Suddenly thinking, oh, actually, maybe it might not be a bad season after all. Maybe we've underestimated the qualities of our own football club.
Absolutely. Look, it's just this just highlights the fallacy of the football fan, right, and of us in particular, and of the podcast, and just what it is to be a football fan. Last week's pod was genuinely we try and do our best to try and stay a little bit pragmatic and look holistically at the bigger picture and that sort of stuff. But last week was a bit tough, wasn't it? It's like 1-1 at Bournemouth. Yeah. You're like, come on, that was must win. We're not going to win till the end of October. Moisey could be out. The fans are going to get angry. It's going to be horrible. And then we turn over a team that's cost £1 billion to assemble with like a manager who's considered one of the best in the world. With our ragtag bunch of converted right backs and misfits led by Moisey, who half the fan base hate and want out the club. It's quite the fallacy indeed. But yeah, an amazing result. I mean, let's call it as it is, right? As we try and do on the podcast. That could have gone either way, couldn't it? Let's be frank. As much as we've come away with a 3-1 victory, if we were sitting here and Chelsea had won the game 3-1, you would not have been surprised at all. I thought they looked full of energy and full of running, really dangerous for large parts of the game. I think you mentioned, obviously, David Moyes' style. You kind of, as many times as you watch it, you still don't get used to the opposition having loads of the ball, do you? You always feel that we're getting well beaten here, or, oh, no, we're proper under the cosh. But if you look at it, the amount of wins we've had under David Moyes, you'd say the lion's share of those have been with less of the ball, haven't they? But despite that, you still don't quite get used to the opposition dominating possession all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that we're a better team without the very thing that we should be good at using.
Put it in the net.
Put it in the net and actually playing with the football, which is what you're supposed to do. But we're a better team without it, and that showed yesterday. But yeah, you're right. You don't get used to it, especially when you're up against someone like Raheem Sterling, who I thought was outstanding.
I thought he was really
throughout.
Good,
yeah. He gave us a lot of problems down that right hand side or our left, and he concerned me probably more than any one of their players. I thought he's going to because he loves scoring. I think he scored 6 goals at London Stadium as well, all for Man City, obviously, when he used to rock up and beat us 12-0 every time. But he seems to love that pitch. So as soon as within the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh yeah, like he's going to cause us a lot of problems, and he did throw out even when we were winning. So yeah, when you come up against a team like that and you go 1-0 up early, and then you just know and exactly what happened. We're going to sit back and try and grind out a 1-0 win for the remaining 83 minutes of the game, and you've got a £1 billion team with Raheem Sterling on a mad one. Like, yeah, you expect to concede more than one, don't you? In the end, but somehow we've done it. We did it again. We have I think we mentioned it last week. We have a knack of David Moyes has a knack of just grinding out these just like unexpected and very surprising results.
Plucking them out sort of when he needs them, or you know, more importantly, when no one expects him to get them. I think is sort of how it works most, isn't it? But yeah, look, you know, incredible to beat Chelsea. They're clearly still a work in progress, and you do sense they will improve as the season goes on. They played really well against Liverpool on the opening day, and again, it could have gone either way. Mauricio Pochettino, afterwards, speaking how annoyed he was about, he'd warned his players that West Ham are really good at set pieces. James Ward-Prowse, instant impact. I don't think I've ever had as much egg on my face. I've been quite vocal, not only on the podcast, but on Twitter, in our BBC column, anywhere where there's a We Are West Ham presence, really. And even just in the office, chatting to my colleagues, saying, James Ward-Prowse, dodgy signing, good at set pieces, but, you know, for everything you gain from set pieces, he'll get overrun in the middle of the park, and you know, it'll affect our gameplay, and we might score a couple more because of him, but I think we'll concede a few more too. I feel like a bit of a Wally.
When he put that corner in, he put one in just before actually, and we'd had a chance, and we'd missed. But when he put that corner in for Aguerd's goal, I was shouting, James Ward-Prowse, James Ward-Prowse. And my mates were like, no, it was Aguerd. I was like, I know it was Aguerd who scored it, but look at the impact James Ward-Prowse has had. I knew that would happen. And it was great that every single corner that we took was bang on. Absolutely bang on. Faultless throughout. And it was like, we finally got a corner taker as well. You didn't get an opportunity to hit a free kick, but that'll come. But I think it's a superb signing for 30 million quid, and that shows 2 assists on his debut. How you never saw it was a good signing, I still will never know. And the fact that BBC column that we had published last week that you wrote is going to be on the internet forever is funny, apart from the fact that it's got my name on it, which is not great. People think it's me that's written that, and it was you.
Yeah, true story, mate. Look, to be honest, it sort of highlights that as perhaps one of the worst football takes of all time. I've had a bit of a stinker the last week or so, actually. I was sort of quite publicly saying, I went on the radio about a week or so ago saying, I think the Harry Maguire thing's just a bit of posturing from his agent. I think that deal will still get done. You'll see him in a West Ham shirt by the end of the window. Within 48 hours, it was like, 100% off. Mavropanos looks like he's on the way in. But listen, loads to talk about. James, any sort of exciting non-football updates? How's things? How are you getting on? How's it been the last week? Your new haircut's still looking decent.
Still looking good, thanks, mate. Yeah, still.
Did you get it done after a holiday? So did you go on holiday and then have a haircut? Because it appears like you've got a tan line just sort of like around the perimeter of your face.
Well, I mean, I came back. I mean, I'm slightly red today because I spent 4 hours in the sun before kickoff yesterday, sitting outside a bar in Stratford, and probably not the best thing to do. I'm very red and a little bit sore, to be honest, today. Yeah. But so that probably highlights it probably a lot more than it is. But I do have a tan line. Obviously, I'm still a little bit tan from my trip in Spain a month ago.
Yeah.
So yeah,
maybe it's the shadow from your quiff that that just sort of blocks the sunlight out, because it is a fairly I assume you've been called Johnny Bravo before, have you?
No, it's not a quiff. It looks like it because I've got headphones on, but it's actually just slicked back. But my headphones are pushing down the middle of my hair, so it now looks like I've got a quiff. Okay. Yeah, I don't actually have a quiff.
Presley. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe's going down. It's like, what do you want, mate? Yeah, I have a short back and sides and a perm, like usual, please.
Yeah.
Well, look, mate, I'm not slagging it. Yeah, just never known anyone to get a tan line just from the shape of their hair. It's impressive stuff, mate. Look, we've got a packed show coming up this week. As I mentioned last week, Robbie Morgan, comedian, sketch artist, online social media sensation. Hopefully a few of you went over and followed him and enjoyed that chat. We're going to try and do a lot more of that this season. Get a few more West Ham based guests. Obviously, we have the opposition view every week and we have the odd surprise guest every now and then. But yeah, we're going to try and have a few more West Ham orientated guests. So it's not just me and Jonesy you have to listen to week on week. Delighted to say this week joining us is the Sun newspaper's West Ham correspondent, Jordan Davis, making his We Are West Ham podcast debut. He's very excited about it and pestering me about it for a while. That's just the stature of the podcast now, Jonesy. The stars and the guests come to us.
We've worked hard for it, haven't we? No, we don't have to work hard at all.
True.
They just come to us and we just rock up on a Monday morning and record.
Yeah, apart from, of course, James, as you know, the impossible task that is finding a Brighton and Hove Albion guest. But I think I've actually cracked it this year. I think we've got an actual Brighton fan from an actual Brighton podcast coming on, from Joe, that is, from Albion Obsessed. He's coming on later on after Jordan, who's going to give us a bit of a different look at things from a West Ham perspective. We'll do a detailed review on that great win against Chelsea. Me and Jonesy will do that. We'll speak about Michail Antonio, James Ward-Prowse's impact of his 2 assists, as James has mentioned already. Aguerd scoring a goal and getting sent off. Lucas Paqueta and these betting allegations. And then Alphonse Areola with his penalty save as well, which, just made me and you look like right Wallies, James. You know, and Michail Antonio pings one in. Hey?
Made me look like a Wally at least, Areola.
Well, the Areola one did, but everyone knows my attitude on Michail Antonio and James Ward-Prowse. So basically, this week we're just going to embrace the fact that, everything we said last week was complete fallacy and ridiculous. We'll have a laugh about that. The Betway charity bets are back. One of us came very, very close this week to pulling in an enormous haul for the DT38 Foundation and the Bobby Moore Fund, which are the charities we're playing for this year. So we'll have that with Betway charity bets later on. The opposition view with Joe, as I mentioned, from Albion Obsessed, and then some final thoughts from me and Jonesy. Pack show promises to be an exciting, interesting and fun one. So make sure you stay with us. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. I'm at @WilliamPugh_. James is at by James Jones. You can get us on Instagram as well. We Are West Ham Pod. You can buy us a pint if you want at buymeacoffee.com/WeAreWestHam. James went out to the game yesterday and had a few. So if you fancy chipping in to our beer fund or just generally stuff to make the podcast better, we buy equipment and guest fees, then that's buymeacoffee.com/WeAreWestHam. I don't think, James, I've forgotten anything. Oh yeah, you can email us at wearewesthampod@gmail.com and subscribe to the YouTube channel at the We Are West Ham podcast. Just search that. Jonesy does a sterling job of putting all the videos and clips up. A few of those from this week's show, as usual, will be on there. So go over and subscribe. Listen, Jonesy, that Chelsea game then, absolutely sensational. We've already mentioned egg on my face about James Ward-Prowse. I've got my list of topics to cover in front of me, as I always do, as if I prep for the podcast every week. It's completely untrue. Michail Antonio, James Ward-Prowse, Aguerd goal and red, Lucas Paqueta penalty or Areola penalty save. Where do you want to start? Not Areola, I assume.
Well, I mean, Areola's, it was a good save. I say good save. I mean, the penalty wasn't great, but he saved the penalty, and I'm still in a little bit of shock. He dived the right way. He saved it. Maybe he's just been practicing in the summer, knowing he was going to be the first choice.
Listening to the podcast, probably.
He's listening to the podcast. He's heard me moan about it. He's gone, right, I better back my ideas up here and start putting in some penalty saving practice. And it's paid off, clearly. He's obviously... That kept us in the game. And then we go on and win even with 10 men. So, yeah, I would like to apologise to Areola for doubting his ability to save penalties, but he gave me every reason to doubt him from the off. But I apologise publicly.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. I mean, you're obviously a bigger man than I am. Not physically, not actually bigger man than I am. But you're at least 4 to 6 inches short than me, as we all know. But I am not going to apologise.
Am I?
It's just sort of, 4 to 6 roughly ish.
Right, okay.
I'm not going to apologise to Michail Antonio publicly. I texted my dad yesterday, said I'm still not singing the song. Still, none of it makes up for the Manchester United away in the FA Cup midweek journey. I don't think anything ever will. It does make me look a bit silly. Great to obviously win the game. Great to see Antonio score. I did see someone put on Twitter, posted a clip of the Antonio goal and said, "This is going to make some people so angry. Most of them are West Ham fans."
Yeah.
Yeah, I did give that one a like. I thought, I obviously wasn't angry about it, but no, it does. Hey, listen, look, it's great. And if he can rediscover that scoring form again, I'm all for it. It doesn't change the fact I would like to see a striker. The James Ward-Prowse thing we've mentioned already. What did you make of his gameplay, James? Because that was sort of the main, angle that I've taken on it was that, I know he's good at set pieces. I just think when the ball is in open play, which it is a lot of the time, that we may get found wanting, particularly as he sort of appears to have come in as a Declan Rice replacement. He played alongside Souček as Declan used to do. What do you make of the gameplay and how does he affect that dynamic, you think, based on what you saw at Chelsea, against Chelsea?
Well, it certainly felt like Souček was a lot deeper. I thought James Ward-Prowse just throughout the game just felt like a real safe pair of hands in midfield. He literally didn't do anything wrong. Was never caught out of position. His passing was as you'd expect it to be for a player of his quality and a player that's played in the Premier League for the last decade, over 350 appearances. So I think his overall gameplay is going to be playing a little bit further forward, probably exactly how Rice ended his West Ham career, and Souček's going to drop back. I wonder what this means for Alvarez, because I thought the pairing between Souček and Ward-Prowse looked pretty solid up against a good, albeit a little bit inexperienced Chelsea midfield. So you wondered, when Alvarez does come in, he came on for Ward-Prowse. I don't think the Alvarez-Souček midfield works as well.
That's too defensive, surely.
Yeah. So it's probably a little bit of work in progress, but I thought he was just a safe pair of hands, Ward-Prowse. I thought, going into every game with him in there, like we felt with Declan Rice, but obviously he's not as good as Declan Rice. But you always felt going into a game with Declan Rice midfield, you knew he's going to make sure everything's covered. He's not going to put a foot wrong. He's going to put a 7 out of 10 minimum every single game. And I feel like that with James Ward-Prowse, and obviously he put in a higher than a 7 out of 10 yesterday in his debut. But even on a bad day, he's still putting a decent performance. So I think he proved it. I think he's proved that 30 million quid's an absolute steal, if I'm honest.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, I'm always happy to be wrong about these sort of things, particularly when I'm voicing negative or fearful opinions. So, absolutely brilliant. And I hope he sort of pushes on. He's closing in on David Beckham's Premier League free kick record. I think is it true? He equals it with his next one? And then
his next one,
the one after that, I think.
Yeah, and he's desperate to do it as well. He said it, didn't he, in his interview? He's got his eye on that record. So you can bet scoring at least a couple.
Yeah, happy days. That'd be great. Everyone loves to see a direct free kick. Yeah, what a debut that is. And Jordan mentioned it there. James, just briefly, what did you make of sort of the atmosphere? The Conference League trophy was on display beforehand. Moisey was actually saying in the build-up wasn't too keen on it. He wants to move on. But what did you make of the atmosphere and the attitude towards David Moyes and the team?
I thought the atmosphere was good. Obviously, it helps. London derby, it's always a little bit fiery. Fans are a lot more up for it. Obviously, first time game of the season as well. The weather was good.
Sunday games can be dodgy though, can't it?
Yeah, but the sun was shining. It was hot. It was very, very hot in the stadium. And people just naturally a little bit happier in those environments. And obviously, for many fans, first time getting over there again since the final. So the atmosphere was good. It got a little bit ropey after we'd gone 1-0 up. Everyone was still buzzing, but immediately we just dropped back. and invited Chelsea onto us, and then Chelsea started getting on top. Obviously, get the equaliser, and in fact, you could feel it. Fans a little bit like, oh well, that was fun while it lasted, sort of thing. Like we knew that was going to happen. There's a few frustrated fans at that point, but the way we come out in the second half really felt like, yeah, actually, no, they're going to go for this. Okay, there are going to be times in the game where they're going to have to sit back. They're going to have to soak up the pressure. Like we said earlier, we're better without the ball. But the fans definitely contributed to it. And see, when Antonio breaks through, the roar for that goal was pretty loud. To be fair, probably out of complete surprise that he's hit it so well. But overall, certainly putting up as one of the best atmospheres that I've seen up there. We've seen a few of me and you have been at odds a few times over what one's count, but certainly a good and happy day at London Stadium in Stratford. Very loud.
Yeah, lovely, mate, lovely. Aguerd scores, great goal, really grown into a player, one of the first names on the team sheet. West Ham fans got real affinity with him. Then he gets sent off. First yellow was for a cynical foul. I think he'll only miss one game because it was 2 yellows, which is handy. And then he obviously gets the red for slide tackle, which, to be fair, more zealous referees could have given that as a red on its own, really. But we looked fine afterwards, really, didn't we? Obviously a bit backs against the wall, but we played it out well. What did you make of his performance and both of those key moments?
Well, I think my only concern with him missing the game, especially the Brighton game, is that he's the place at the back for us. And we're going to be missing that against the team that has a little bit of pace in attack. That's my concern. Obviously, if Mavropanos comes in, he has got a little bit of pace, so maybe that might just plug a gap. You can't expect much from him on his first game.
Does he play straight away, you think?
Well, I would prefer that than Ogbonna, because Ogbonna's just not fast enough anymore. No, you wouldn't bet against Ogbonna in aerial duels. You win every header, and he'll make the odd interception. But when he's having to run back and he's chasing an attacker, then he's got absolutely no chance against someone like Matoma or something like that. So, or João Pedro. That's my concern. Is that he deserved the 2 yellows. No complaints about that. But we're now missing our quickest centre half, and I'd say probably our best centre half. I think he's fantastic. In a game where we're probably going to need him most. And you did feel it when he came. Obviously, they brought Ogbonna on. You brought Ogbonna on for, I think it was Benrahma was hooked for it, and you could instantly see that the dynamics of our defending changed very, very quickly. And Chelsea looked a lot more likely to probably get another goal because they just, Mudryk was offering a little bit of pace down the left. Raheem Sterling was causing all sorts of bother on that right hand side. So that's my only concern with losing him for a game. But if we can get this other guy in, then hopefully that just plugs a gap. But again, what does that mean for? I don't know how. What is he going to switch to 5 at the back now? Once we've got all these centre halves coming in, looks like it's what's going to happen.
Well, I don't know if this is working pretty well. You never know, do you? But does he play Kehrer then? If you're worried about pace as centre back against Brighton,
potentially, but then Kehrer's not really got the height.
True.
Is he?
Brighton, he's not. They're not massive at out front.
No, but if you're thinking about corners and that, you've got Kehrer, you've got someone like Lewis Dunk flying in.
Yeah,
you want as many big men up in the box as possible. So
Tommy Souček, Zuma, Alvarez, maybe. Yeah, you never know, do you? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Well, look, what else have we got then? Yeah, the penalty save recovered. Lucas Paqueta. What do you make of that whole situation then? We haven't really covered it off. Obviously, the way the situation stands at the moment is that he's been investigated, or there is an investigation ongoing, a betting-related investigation, which appears to have thwarted any potential move to Manchester City. I'm led to believe anyway that there was an approach of around 65 million was the initial one, and then it all went quiet. Whether or not the two things are related, but it had gone quiet before certainly the story came out about the betting irregularities. And yeah, the suggestions are at the moment, and these are reports, of course, that bets were placed overseas in Brazil by people close to Paqueta. Some suggestions that it's his brother, but again, we've got to be very careful with that at the moment because they are just reports and suggestions. Lucas Paqueta denies and has made it clear that he's never placed any bets himself. Yeah, there is an investigation ongoing at the moment. So I would say, just this is a sort of an opinion thing based on what I've read and what I'm aware of, is that certainly any transfer to Man City this window, I think, is a no-go probably because of that. And there is an investigation ongoing. I'm led to believe, I understand that there's more than one betting company that involve. Obviously, the stories that have been released so far, initially from reports coming out of Brazil, was that new accounts were set up with Betway, West Ham shirt sponsor. And that's why I'm led to believe that there are more than one betting company who sort of not been hit, but who were used, not involved. But yeah, so obviously you've got to be careful at the moment. A bit of a tricky situation. All the appropriate authorities have been notified, which is sort of how this process has come out. There's a process in place which is ongoing at the moment. But what did you make of that, Jonesy? David Moyes said afterwards he hasn't really spoken to Paqueta about it because he's not that sort of bloke. You could sort of tell, it seemed to me, in his celebration, a bit of relief there after he puts the penalty away. Class penalty. He's such a Rolls Royce of a player. What do you make of the sort of situation, what it means for West Ham and how he reacted and played off the back of that at the weekend?
Well, obviously it's not a good situation to be in. You arguably our best player being investigated for something like that, and what the ramifications of that are down the line potentially. And when those reports first surfaced, there's part you're going, cool, at least that means he's not going to Man City. But the other half's like, well, what does that do to him, his morale, his ability to perform when he's got all that hanging over his head? Is he going to be annoyed that all of this, especially if he's found that he's done nothing wrong, leads to collapsing a move to a place where he's a club where he's going to win a lot of titles? And what's that going to do to his mood? His willingness to perform for the club and want to play for the club, and obviously it's not the club making these accusations and the investigation. Obviously, it's the FA. But I was concerned that it would have a lot of knock-on effects to the Lucas Paqueta that we've grown to quite enjoy watching play every single week. I think it's been fantastic the last 6-7 months for us. He was brilliant against Chelsea. And it was that performance against Chelsea which made me think, actually, no, this is actually going to work in our favour. Obviously, we need to see what the outcome of the investigation is, but the move to Man City is now collapsed, we're led to believe. It doesn't look like that's going to be rekindled this window. He proved against Chelsea that he, regardless of what's going on off the pitch, he's still going to give 100%. He still cares. It wasn't just his celebration for his goal. The way he celebrated the other 2 goals with the rest of the squad shows that he absolutely wants to give 100% for this football club. And he clearly enjoys playing for us. Yes, he had his head turned. I know you hate that phrase, but he's had his head turned by Man City. But who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
How many degrees?
He's still 90.
Do you think a full 90? God, yeah, blimey, that is quite a lot. That's like when you're looking, that's looking straight back over your spine, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, it isn't 90 degrees. Sorry, that's only a quarter of a turn, isn't it?
Well, he's looking like next to him, going, cool. So that's a nice looking football club over there.
That's not a full head turn. It's 360 though, isn't it? So 90.
Yeah. Like but a 90 still. A 90 still. The fact it's only 90 degrees though, because he's still playing. He's still playing for us. He's still playing well.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
he's clearly showing that he wants to play for us. His celebration, the way he celebrated the other 2 goals, his performance against Chelsea. his performance against Bournemouth as well. And if anything, the way that he's conducted himself throughout this whole thing, before the investigation started, but even throughout this whole Man City thing, has made me love the bloke even more. Because a lot of players, whether anyone likes it or not, a lot of players, the moment they find out Man City are interested, they push for a move. They want to get out when they're playing for clubs like West Ham. They want to get out. And I, maybe it's wrong for me to say, but I half expected him to do that. And I probably wouldn't have blamed him.
What, throw your toys out the pram sort of thing?
Almost maybe not so much throw your toys out the pram, but really push for it and go, look, I want to go.
Yeah.
But instead he's gone, yeah, I'd be interested in signing for Man City, but I respect the club's position. I respect the club's valuation of me. And in the meantime, I'll continue to perform. And I'll give my everything for the football club. And I'll play every single game as if, as if this isn't happening.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of respect for him for that. And I love him even more for that. And, if he doesn't go and he has a great season, he's going to go for 85 million quid next summer. And we can go, thanks very much, Lucas. We've made, 30, 40 million pound profit on you. Happy days.
Yeah.
And it's funny, it's good for everyone then, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just interesting how it almost appears that I'm already thinking, 85 million, that's a bargain. No, that's a bargain for anyone who comes and snaps him up.
It is, but no, we had this conversation with friends yesterday before the game, and they're going, well, but what if Man City come in with 88 million this summer? It's like, okay, then you sell him, because there's no guarantee you're going to sell him for 85 million next summer. The fact is that doesn't look like it's on the table anymore. So we're going to have him for another year, or at least another 6 months. And then we'll see what happens. Yeah,
hopefully you obviously get value out of him then. Yeah, totally agree, mate. Totally agree. Look, all in all, a brilliant win at London Stadium at the weekend. It puts us sixth, just level on points, goal difference, goals scored with Tottenham in fifth. Liverpool are in the top four with their victory and then a point. They've got same goal difference as us as well, same points. They've just scored more goals. No, they haven't scored more goals than we have. They're exactly the same. They've scored 4 and 2. We're basically in the top four, but we're only sixth on alphabetical order. So yeah, we're basically a top four side now. More points than Newcastle. One of only 6 unbeaten teams in the Premier League. Great win. Unfortunately, it's Brighton next. They bring us all crashing back down to earth. And